Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, is one of my favorite films that I grow to love even more the more I watch it. I always have something more to appreciate about it upon every rewatch. So, through this video, I simply wanted to talk about the movie and its themes. Our protagonist is Regan Thompson, played by Michael Keaton, who should have won the Oscar. He has a want and internal conflict. Regan feels like he's irrelevant, as pointed out by his daughter Sam, who he has a rough relationship with. He's a theatre actor whose external want is for his play to go well, but he is faced with obstacles that he has to face. Regan injures one of his own actors simply because he hates his acting, and it shows how far he is willing to go to achieve what he wants. He hates the internet and is found criticizing the people who fight for views, subscribers, and followers, but the irony is that these people who fight to be relevant every single day are no different than Regan, who just goes about it in a different way. This film is also personal to me as it's a story about artists and their struggles. Regan's play is based on Raymond Carver's What We Talk About When We Talk About Love, but he's doing it not for the sake of art, but because he wants to feel loved and admired. There's even a personal reason as to why he chose to do that specific play that is connected to his childhood and his motivation to be an actor. The film is also meta on some level. Regan is a theatre actor who once played a comic book character, Birdman, similar to how the actor that plays Regan, who's Michael Keaton, once played Batman. Even the other actors, such as Emma Stone and Edward Norton, had once played Gwen Stacy and the Hulk, respectively. There's even a funny scene where Regan is looking for actors for his play and is frustrated at the fact that most of them have signed contracts with studios for playing these very comic book characters. The voice of Birdman is constantly talking to Regan in a demeaning manner. Regan is haunted by Birdman and the legacy he left behind as a movie star. Every time Regan is struggling or going through problems, Birdman just makes him feel even more worse about himself and always gives him the choice to leave theatre and go back to making large-scale blockbuster movies. And doing that is the easy and safe choice. But Regan denies that path despite the constant temptation and still decides to risk everything for this play, and that's what makes him an admirable and sympathetic character, despite his flaws as a person. Regan is so focused on his play that he ignores his daughter Sam. This also negatively affects Sam. She states that in her past, her father was never really there for her, and that also caused a bridge in their relationship. Regan had gotten a divorce and he still talks to his ex-wife, but you can tell that something feels a little off. They care about each other, but Regan's actions had caused them to separate. Mike Shiner, played by the fantastic Edward Norton, works perfectly as a foil for Regan because he works to challenge him. Mike always causes problems for the main character, he has his own style of acting, and that results in him giving a satisfactory enough performance for Regan to hire him for the play. But this does not prove to be fruitful because Mike is so obsessed with the believability of his performance that it causes him to be a genuinely terrible person. He's mean, condescending, and doesn't consider anybody else's feelings. Regan is doing the play for wanting to be loved and remembered by people, meanwhile Mike is doing it for himself. He doesn't care what others think of him, and the audience's reactions don't scare him, and that's certainly a respectful trait, only that he goes too far with it. But Regan is too worried about his legacy. He wishes to leave something behind to be remembered by, but this costs him his relationships with his loved ones, and I personally relate to this. As an artist, I too wish to leave a body of work to be remembered by, and I want to make something that can affect people in such a way that I live in their memory long after my death. Birdman isn't afraid to face these philosophical questions head on. Now, the filmmaking of Birdman is also phenomenally executed. It is a film that's made to seem like it's all shot in one singular take, which could seem like a gimmick, but I think it works here perfectly as you really get to feel the time passing by amidst all the chaos going on. The active camera feels like a person walking with these characters backstage. You also get to feel the length of a scene, as many times the camera isn't afraid to linger with a character having a personal moment by themselves or with someone else. I also love how the camera seamlessly switches perspectives. The central character keeps on changing depending on how and when the camera wishes to move in the scene. But the lack of cuts also makes you feel stuck, like you can't get rid of these characters and you have to follow them and their lives and struggles. Birdman is also a film that critiques criticism. One of the most hated characters of the film is the infamous critic Tabitha Dickinson. Before we even see her, she feels like a force to be reckoned with because the importance of her opinion is clearly shown. It does not matter how much effort Regan is putting in his play, and it doesn't matter how much he's risking and sacrificing for it. One bad review from Tabitha could completely destroy everything Regan has ever worked for, and this amount of power residing in one person made her feel terrifying. But when Regan actually talks to her, we get to see how truly despicable she is. Tabitha is prepared to write a terrible troubled review for Regan's play even before having seen it, purely because she hates who Regan is as a person. When Regan reads her review of another play, he states how her review only contains labels. She doesn't write about technique or structure, instead, her reviews are filled with empty adjectives that simply label everything instead of actually describing her experience in a nuanced way.
There's nothing in here about technique. There's nothing in here about structure. Nothing in here about intention. It's just a bunch of crappy opinions.
Regan is a true artist in the sense that he's letting this drive his every action. He's risking everything to be on stage. Now, if that's a good or a bad thing is left undecided. That's for us, the audience, to figure out. When he says,
I'm a fucking actor.
the shot lingers on his face. That shows a little bit of doubt. Is Regan really a good actor? Does he think he's a good actor? Why does he look doubtful after that statement? I just found it to be a very moving scene. Birdman is also a film that seamlessly transitions between dream and reality. Sometimes the things that happen on screen are so unbelievable that we are made to question whether what we're seeing is apparently real or not. When Birdman is speaking to Regan, he responds to it by getting angry and frustrated. And in these moments, Regan supposedly has superpowers where he can control objects without touching them. But the editing of the film also suggests that this is probably going on inside his head, because as Regan's manager enters the room where he's breaking things inside it, we see him breaking it using his bare hands. Similarly, in a scene where he flies, the end of the scene shows a cab driver wanting his money from Regan as he marches into the theater. So that means he was probably in the cab but was imagining about flying. But we see Regan's perspective, which makes the film very subjective. But amidst all this is a personal story about a man who's wanting to be loved. At the end of the film, when Regan shoots himself, we see that he survived and is in the hospital. I believe this to be a part of Regan's imagination because instead of Tabitha destroying his play, she actually gives it a positive review. His ex-wife is back with him, everybody loves Regan, and he makes up for his broken relationship with Sam. It's actually really heartwarming because this is when Regan changes internally. His arc is to realize that it's not about what others think of your work or for you to be known and loved that defines true existence, but instead it's about spending time with who you care about that really matters in life. It's such a simple theme for a film that has so much going for it, but it's also a little bittersweet if you choose to believe that this is Regan's fantasy, because then it never happened. When we now see him, he had destroyed his nose. So now his nose resembles a beak, showing how Birdman never left him. But later when he removes it, that is when he finally lets go of Birdman, and that is when we see the last of him. Regan then jumps out the window, allowing us to assume that he has committed suicide. But when Sam enters the room, she looks up, allowing us to assume he's actually flying and actually has superpowers. So does it matter whether it's actually fact or fiction? I don't think so, because Regan has completed his arc and the ambiguity adds to the charm of the film. And this is why Birdman is one of my favorite films. It's certainly not for everyone as it breaks many conventional rules of storytelling, but it just works for me, and this is why. Thank you for watching.